Corona. Right. Just so you know, this is rolling. So if you don't want to be heard, don't say anything you don't want to be heard on camera. Don't say anything. Don't say anything too political. Oh, will you look just to see that I'm in the frame? I didn't even look. Or you can look. I don't.
You're in the frame.
Okay, I am.
I was in the frame there for a minute. Yeah, you're like.
Okay.
You want to zoom in at all?
Yeah, zoom in a little bit. I don't care. Well, make sure people can see the board.
Just zoom in completely. Off the right corner.
As a matter of fact, I can kind of even step off to the side here. And are the numbers on there still rolling?
You're right on the right edge. Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. Cool. All right. I think what happened last time is because it filmed me for a second going this way than that, and I think that what happened was as you pushed it back, it stopped it when it pushed back. So I just want to make sure that they're rolling. This is going to be so good that you guys don't want to miss any of it. Let's go. No, are you going to throw that at me?
Well, I wasn't.
Now that I say it, okay. Let's pray because I'm going to need some prayer for this study as well, okay? Dear Father in heaven, Lord, we thank you for the opportunity to gather together to study your word. I pray, God, just that you would give me clarity of mind as we look at several topics here and we try to piece together what's going on today. And we just ask, God, that you would help us to understand and help us to just understand, Lord. And we just ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
All right, as I said that I have, there we go. I knew that was coming. I have several things I kind of want to go through today, and they're a little bit erratic, and they're also a little bit joined together by the same common theme, and that common theme is kind of what's going on today, and can we learn about what's going on today from the book of Revelation. And so we're taking a break for just a second here. From our study on justification, I'm going to kind of go back to a little bit about what we learned about the book of Revelation and see if it speaks to what is going on today. Most of all, I kind of want to talk about what is the enemy's plan and how that fits in today and what is and is not the mark of the beast. And I am going to be speaking on 3 levels and not 3 distinct levels. Say not one level at this time and one level at another time and one level at another time. I'm going to be talking to you about what I really believe is the case, what might be the case, what I'm less sure about, and then what is a guess and what I'm not sure about, and also kind of what I don't think is the case as well. Okay, I really want you to understand what I don't think is the case. Well, I actually want to start out with what I do think is the case. Okay, here's what I do think is the case. Turn to Revelation chapter 20.
20?
Yeah, Revelation chapter 20. We're going to kind of work our way back. And you're going to kind of see that how you view the whole book of Revelation, it kind of dictates how you interpret current events and stuff like that, and how you actually view the world. It's actually a very important book. I talk about it probably a little too much, but it's just my forte. I mean, it's just where I find a lot of what I'm interested in, the book of Revelation and things associated with it. But here in Revelation chapter 20 and verse 7, I want you to see verse 7. It says, "When the 1,000 years ended, Satan will be released from his prison and will come out and deceive the nations that are in the 4 corners of the earth, Gog and Magog, and gather them for battle. The number is like the sand of the sea, and they marched up over the broad plain of the earth and surrounded the camp of the saints and the beloved city. But fire came down from heaven and consumed them, and the devil who had deceived them was thrown into the lake of fire of sulfur, where the beast and the false prophets were, and they will be tormented day and night forever and ever." Okay, so I want you to understand what Satan's main plan is and what God is going to allow for a short time for him to do. Okay, God is going to allow the near destruction of the entirety of the church. Now, I don't think the church can be totally 100% destroyed because, well, it can be more than crippled. This is a situation where we are surrounded and where, so this also goes back to how you interpret the whole book of Revelation. I am not a literalist when it comes to the book of Revelation. And the reason why I'm not a literalist is I take the first verse of the book of Revelation literally. And the first verse of the book of Revelation says these things were signified to you. These things, in other words, these things were communicated to you by signs. So unless you understand symbology, you're not going to understand the book of Revelation. If you try to read it like you're reading a history book just written in advance, that's not at all what's happening. John is not looking at history and going, man, I can't, how do I explain this? Well, helicopters, they kind of look like locusts, and so I don't know what to say. No, John in his vision saw locusts, and locust means something, and it meant something to him. And this is what he's trying to communicate. These are signs that are being communicated. So when Satan is released off of his chain, he is going to be allowed to surround the city of God. Basically, he's going to be allowed to make war on the saints and have success. God is going to allow him to do that. He is going to allow him to have success. And the only rescue that we are going to have is the return of Christ. That's the only rescue. Your rescue is not going to be, and this is why, and I'm going to look at this a little bit further because this theme also pops up in other places in the book of Revelation here. This is why I want you all to be prepared, number one, but I also don't want you to be too hopeful in your preparation. I don't. Because you are not, all the guns, all the storage, everything you have, good, have it, get it. I'm encouraging you to do it. But you are not prepared for the level of assault that is going to come against the Christian church. God says he's going to let Satan have success in this assault. So it doesn't matter how much you've got. You will more than likely, when Satan is released from his chain, if this is that time, you will more than likely die. Jesus said when he comes back, he says, "Will I even find faith on the earth?" I think that we're preparing for a time where there is worldwide assault. So that's what I'm sure about. I'm sure that that's what Satan wants. That's what Satan desires. Now, for right now, at some point, now he's always trying to do this. Okay, I think in every generation he's on a chain right now. But every generation he's like at the end of that chain barking, just like a dog barking. And one day for God's purposes he's going to let him go. Okay, but he's trying to do it. He's not on a chain to the point where he's inactive. That's not what we're saying. But we are saying he's on a chain in the sense that he is restricted. He is restricted from doing this. See, he hasn't been able to do this yet. He hasn't been able to assault a worldwide effort against the church. Now, he's always trying to do that, and he gets these little successes here and there, with Rome and, with Nero and with all these, he gets these little successes here and there. But this has not yet happened. Yes, go ahead, what were you going to say?
I was going to say the modern day Middle East, Africa, the persecution of and murder of hundreds of thousands of Christians, particularly in that area.
Right.
Where Islam is in control.
Right. So you can see that this kind of comes down to kind of how you view the book of Revelation in general, like whether or not you're a futurist or a preterist or an idealist or whatever you are. If you're a premillennial, a postmillennial, or all millennial, I'm interpreting this here all millennially. The other thing that he is restrained from doing right now is he's restrained from evangelism. He's restrained from holding back, at least in total, evangelism. Before the advent of Christ, basically you had very little evangelism outside Israel. Satan had pretty much reign over the entire world. The entire world was in darkness. But since the advent of Christ, and since Christ said, "Go into all the world and preach," he has not been able to stop that. He's been able to hinder it, to fight against it, but but not stop it. And we've actually had great successes and we've had great failures in that, okay? I mean, we've had great successes. We've had tons of people come to the Lord. Tons of people come to the Lord. And we've also had worldwide persecution as well. They're both. Jesus said good and evil will grow side by side until the end. So I think that we're going to see great successes, and we're going to see great persecution as well during this time before he's released off his chain. I'm just letting you know that, okay? There was something else there I wanted to say too. Oh yeah, also with that, Jesus said that this gospel will be preached throughout the world. So he's prevented from stopping that. So he's on a chain right now in the sense that he can't mount yet worldwide opposition, and he can't hinder the gospel. Well, he can't stop it from going out. He can hinder it, but he can't stop it. I misspoke there. Okay, so with that in mind, and if I am correct about my view here of Revelation chapter 20, it being that Satan is currently bound, which, by the way, even premillennialists believe he's currently bound, just so you know. They just see that, they just don't think that Revelation 20 has happened yet. Okay, so that's just so you know. So there are a lot of good premillennials out there who believe almost everything I'm saying, but believe that Revelation 20 is not teaching that. So just so you know, they believe everything I'm saying, but D.A. Carson would be one of them. He'd believe everything I'm saying, but he just doesn't believe that applies to Revelation chapter 20. He believes he's premillennial. In other words, he believes that Christ comes back before Revelation chapter 20. Okay, I'm amillennial, and postmillennial believe that Jesus Christ comes back after the binding of Satan. Okay, so that's kind of the differences there. Okay, well, with that in mind, the other thing I kind of wanted to tackle a little bit, so that's what I'm sure about. I mean, I'm almost positive about that, that the worldwide assault that's coming when God allows Satan to be released off of his chain is going to be unavoidable. There's going to be no way to prepare for it. Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't try. Jesus also said, you know, the poor you'll have with you always. Does that mean that we just don't feed the poor now? Well, Jesus said we shouldn't feed the poor. We shouldn't help them out because you're always going to have poor people. So, no, you should try. It's better to try than not try. But I'm just letting you know there's a level of success that's being granted here that I'm going to say that most people are not going to be able to avoid. Most people are not going to be able to avoid the assault that's coming. Not with all the preparation that you can possibly think of. Okay? Now, the other reason I want to tackle this tonight, and I want you to see this, is because this idea of Satan being bound, then coming out of a pit and making war on the church, and the church having to be rescued, Revelation 20 is not the only place that that's taught. Okay, that's actually taught throughout the book of Revelation. Now, remember, the book of Revelation is how many cycles? 7 cycles. 7.
The number within the book of Revelation is 7.
Yeah, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. There are 7 cycles. What that means is when you read the book of Revelation and you look at a certain section of it, please do not take that section out of context. Understand that section within its cycle. So it starts in one place and ends in another, and it's placed there for a reason. So I want you to see a couple other cycles where this is actually taught. Now this gets to the point, and this is where I was going to struggle a little bit to how to explain this, because this is where I'm less sure of what it means. And the reason I'm less sure of what it means is because the symbols are malleable. It's like, is he talking about now? Is he talking about the future? And the truth is he's kind of talking about both. It's dreamlike landscape of the mind of John. And so when you have a woman who gives birth, and the woman but then it changes, and then she goes into the wilderness, and it's just a dreamlike situation. And so when you're looking at some of these pivotal verses, it's difficult to squeeze the lines too tight, because it's like squeezing sand. It just slips right through your fingers. You're not going to be able to make clear lines clear lines of demarcation on some of these things. So with that in mind, and one of the reasons I wanted to bring this up is we were talking about the mark of the beast. We'll turn to Revelation chapter 13 where the mark of the beast is. All right. Now this is one of those places where there is a very clear now and not yet component. It is both. It is both talking about now and not yet. Now let me back up there and tell you why I'm saying this. I want to tell you why I'm saying this because there's going to be hints in here as to why I'm saying that. But remember that when we went through this, the 7 cycles of the book of Revelation are 7 progressive cycles. Okay, you remember that. Okay, in other words, the first cycle, chapter 1 through to the end of chapter 3, is a lot. It's about the whole church age, but it's a lot about what's going on in John's day. It's a lot about what's going on in John's day. The second cycle, where you have the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, is a lot about what's happening in John's day, and then a lot about what's happening, we can even cast our own understanding of what's going on in our day on that second cycle, and then more about the end. And the next cycle is what's going on in John's day and a little bit more at the end, because it's kind of like a mystery. So when you read a certain section, you have to ask yourself, where are we in that section? And depending upon where you are will let you know how much you can really squeeze out of it as to what is now and what is then, okay, or what is later. Because it's like a mystery, it's like a mystery novel. A little bit's given, but then it's explained later. And a little bit's given, then it's explained later. And as you go through the book of Revelation, when you get to the last cycle of the book of Revelation, it's all about the end. It's all about the new heavens and the new earth. And then the cycle before that is about Satan himself being destroyed, as we saw. So we'll see world systems being destroyed. We'll see the beast being destroyed. We'll see these things happening. But this chapter here is a little bit of both, and takes some real interesting interpretive skills, because I want to get to what the mark of the beast is, and what it isn't. All right. So with that said, now notice here that chapter 13 in verse 1, it says, "And I saw a beast rising out of the sea with its 10 horns and 7 heads." Now where is this beast rising out of?
Sea, the ocean.
Okay, the sea. Okay. Now, what's the other term for the sea given in the Bible?
Chaos.
Okay, chaos, but what's it given in Revelation 20, where it's explained a little bit more? It starts with an A. The abyss, yes, the abyss. Okay, so I want you to see where this beast comes from. It goes, "Then I saw a beast rising out of the sea." Now this is interesting, because you're going to see that this section parallels Revelation 20 to a degree, but to a degree it's different. So by the way, does anybody know which cycle we're on in this? Cycle 4. Just so you know, we're in cycle 4 right now. Okay, that means there's been 3 cycles previous, and we're on the 4th cycle. How does cycle 4 begin in Revelation chapter 12? Can anybody summarize what happens in Revelation chapter 12?
Satan's thrown down.
Satan's cast out. What happens at the beginning of Revelation chapter 20? Satan's put into the abyss. Okay, so we're getting the same pictures over and over again. We're getting the same thing over and over again. Okay, now look here where it says, "And I saw a beast rising out of the sea." Now, what I want you to see is in chapter 11, because it's telling the same story. We're going to cinch this up here in just a second. Okay? Chapter 11 and verse 7. It said, "When they had finished their testimony, the beast rises from the bottomless pit and will make war on them and conquer them and kill them." Now you see what's happening here? It's there. What are they going to do? They're going to make war on them, conquer them, and kill them. Now, I don't have time to go and justify this. You'll have to go back and look at the video, but the 2 witnesses are the church. We're the 2 witnesses. It's not 2 literal people in Israel. I'm not a dispensationalist. We're the church. And I can't make justification for that right now, but you'll have to go back and look that up for yourself. There are 2 lampstands, 2 olive trees, and 2 witnesses. Okay? The lampstands we've already seen, they represent the churches. Why 2? Because 2 is the numerical, what you needed to indict somebody. You needed 2 witnesses. Okay, but it says, and when they had finished their testimony, the beast that rises from the bottomless pit will make war on them and conquer them and kill them. Okay, destruction is sure. Destruction is sure. Okay, so now go back to chapter 13. And I saw a beast rising out of the sea with 10 horns and 7 heads. And with diadems and horns and blasphemous names on its head. And the beast was like a leopard. And now notice how many heads this thing has. 7, okay, because I'm going to get to that in a second here. And this is why I'm going to talk about that this is now and not yet. This is one of the chapters that's very much now and not yet. Okay? It's very much now and not yet. And trying to make it all now and try to make it all future, you're going to run into problems either way. Okay, and I'm going to show you why here in a second. Okay, and it says the diadems of its horns had a blasphemous name on its head, and the beast that I saw was like a leopard, and its feet was like a bear's, and its mouth was like a lion's mouth. And if you read Daniel chapter 7, you'll see what this is a composite beast of all of them. So this is probably, I'm going to say it's a world empire, but with somebody at the head of the world empire. Okay, there's going to be one head honcho guy. And this is going to be part of the reason why I'm going to say that, well, okay, I just want you to see that a lot of this hasn't happened yet. And a lot of this has to happen before the mark of the beast can happen. A lot of this has to happen before the mark of the beast happens. Okay? You have to have the Antichrist. You have to have this beast figure because it's his name that's put on your forehead and hand. So, and you have to have the false prophet to give. We don't have that yet. We don't. Not yet. Now, that could have happened in a month, maybe. And this, okay, so he has the mark on his, or sorry, he has these composite-like features. It says, and to the dragon he gave his power and his throne and great authority. So he is puppeted by the dragon, who is Satan. One of its heads seemed to have a mortal wound, but its mortal wound was healed, and the whole earth marveled as they followed the beast. Now I'm going to say that that we're having 2 clues here. Remember I said it's now and not yet. It's now and not yet. There's a not yet element here, but there's also a now element here, and I'll show you why I think there's a now element here. Because he gets wounded and he comes back to life. Okay, this is what happens with world leaders. It's what happens with world empires. One world empire, remember, Satan's always trying to do this. One world empire comes to the fore, it fails. Rome falls. The Catholic Church falls. Then another empire comes up and it tries and it falls. Nazi Germany falls. And it comes back and it comes, so it dies and comes back to life.
These are all the 6 heads.
I'm going to show you that in just a second here. Okay. And its mouth was like, oh, sorry, I already read that. It's wounds healed. In verse 4, it says, and they worshiped the dragon, for he had given authority to the beast, and they worshiped the beast, saying, who is like the beast, and who can fight against it? There's got to be a religious element to this world system. It can't be a secular system, and it can't be an atheist system. Whatever system this is going to have a religious element to it. Okay? Religious element to where they worship. In verse 5 it says, and the beast was given a mouth uttering haughty and blasphemous words. And it was allowed to exercise authority for 42 months. Now, this is one of those indicators that it's also now. It's now and it's not yet, because 42 months is another representation of the entirety of the church age. So it's now, but it's also not yet. It opened its mouth to utter blasphemies against God, blaspheming his name and his dwelling, that is, those who dwell in heaven. Also, it was allowed to make war on the saints and to conquer them. Okay? What happens in the last chapter when the beast comes out of the ocean? Or
Surround the city.
surrounds the city in chapter 20. This one it conquers. This one, and then chapter 11 it kills, right? Okay, it kills. Okay, so we're getting this idea that this is not going to be good. You are probably not going to survive, more than likely. Now you might, again, but I'm repeating myself. But it's given authority and was given over to the tribe of people and languages and nations. And all who dwell on the earth will worship it. Everyone whose name has not been written from the foundation of the world in the book of life of the Lamb who was slain. Now this is why I believe that we're not ready for this kind of assault, is because it's going to have authority over every single person who is not a Christian.
Right.
It is not, there is not going to be any gung-ho Mormons fighting for America out there. They are going to be deceived, just like everybody else is going to be deceived. Your neighbor, your friend. This is why I think this is why it's going to be so successful, is because there's going to be a level of deception here that's going to deceive everybody but born again believers, but the elect, Okay? So it's going to have this authority over everybody but the elect. If anyone has an ear, let him hear. If anyone is taken captive, into captivity he goes. If anyone is slain with the sword, with the slain he goes. Here is a call for endurance of faith of the saints. All right, in verse 11 we see this second beast. Then I saw another beast rising out of the earth, and it had two horns like a lamb, and it spoke like a dragon. What is going on here? This is deception. Okay.
False prophet.
Yes. Yeah. It looks like a lamb, but it speaks like a dragon. So this is religious deception.
Duplicitous.
Yes. It will exercise authority over the first beast in its presence and makes the earth and its inhabitants worship the first beast. So this one, the first one acts through military authority. The second one acts through religious authority. So there's got to be two authorities in this world empire. There's got to be the authority of the state and the authority of the religion, whatever it is. Islam, might be Islam, might not be. Might be a lot of people. That's why a lot of people thought it was the Catholic Church back in Luther's day, and even many people thought it was the Catholic Church, because the Catholic Church and the regular empire were one and the same. So you could see why somebody back there reading that would think, oh, Catholic Church for sure. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, could it, it could be just simply the apostate, even within Christianity, saying, do what you're supposed to do, go here, do this, obey the state, but why they look like a lamb, but they're telling you to give homage to the state.
Yeah.
It could come in a variety of different
It could be apostate Christianity, like
Joel
Osteen.
Yeah.
Could be in Joel. Right. You gotta. Yeah.
Do what the government tells you and take your vaccine.
But this beast points people to the first beast, and this beast is going to have signs and wonders. Okay, so it's going to have signs and wonders accompanying it. So in verse 12 it says, exercise all authority of the first beast in its presence, and makes the earth and its inhabitants worship the first beast whose mortal wound had been healed. It performs great signs and even makes fire come down from heaven to the earth in front of the people. And by the signs it is allowed to work in the presence of the beast. It deceives those who dwell on the earth. The fire coming down out of heaven was, what is it hearkening back to in the Old Testament?
Elijah.
No, Elijah. Remember, that was the mark that God was working. So God's going to allow a measure of deception that people are going to think, well, this has got to be from God. So this is why there's got to be a religious element to this, a strong religious element to this. Telling them to make an image for the beast that was wounded by the sword and yet lived, and it was allowed to give breadth to the image of the beast, and that image of the beast might even speak and might cause those who would not worship the image of the beast to be slain. Also it causes all, both small and great, both rich and poor, both free and slave, to be marked on the right hand and on the forehead. Now this is where I'm going to give you some interpretive options, okay, for this. I'm going to give you some interpretive options. Some of them are going to be good, some of them are going to be bad, but there's something I kind of want you to see first, okay? Now this is why I think this is a now and not yet thing. There's an element to this that is now, and there's an element to this that's not yet. Okay, and that no one can buy, sell, unless he has the mark, and that is the name of the beast and the number of his name. So whatever this mark is represents the name of the beast and the number of his name. Okay, that's what it represents. It says, this calls for wisdom. Let the one who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it is a number of a man. Now I just want you to know here that the word a is not there. It's just the number of man, okay? Now it could mean a man, or it could mean man. And depending upon what you believe about this will kind of depend upon how you interpret it. So it could just be man, like it could be the number of mankind, or it could be the number of a man. And his number is 666. All right. Before I get into the interpretive options here, this is why I want you to see that there's an element, that why this is in the middle of the...
You're fired.
You're fired. Okay. That's interesting. So this is why I want you to see that this is in the middle of this, and that you can't squeeze it too tightly to say, sorry, part of it's now and part of it's, this part's now and this part's not yet. Well, why? Why would I say that? Well, look at this beast that comes out of the sea. It's got 7 horns, right? Or 7 heads, okay? Right. What's that?
7 heads, 10 horns.
Right. Okay, it's 7. Now, turn over to Revelation chapter 17, where we are now given more of the image. We're given more of the story, okay? Okay, and we'll just start in verse 7. It says, but the angel said to me, why do you marvel? I will tell you the mystery of the woman and the beast with the 7 heads and the 10 horns that carries her. The beast that you saw was and is not and is about to rise from the bottomless pit. Okay, so when you get to this point, it hasn't happened yet, right? Okay, so has it happened or has it hasn't happened? Well, let's read on. Arise from the bottomless pit and go to destruction. What happens when Satan gets let off his chain? He surrounds the city, but then what happens? He goes to, what was the last part of it? He goes to hell. He goes into hell, yes, forever and ever. And the dwellers on the earth, it has been written in the book of the foundation of the world, will marvel to see the beast, because it was not and is to come. Why do I think it's now and then? Well, it is not and is to come, right? This calls for a mind with wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman is seated. They are also 7 kings, 5 of whom have fallen. 1 is, the other has not yet come, and when he comes, he must remain only a little while. And the beast that was and is not is an 8th, but it belongs to the 7, and it goes to destruction. So a lot of words here, but what is he telling us? Okay, so let me broad brush it for a second, then we'll dial it back to maybe some more detail. We are living under the head of the 6th beast. But does the 6th beast have power? Absolutely. Has power to kill. It just doesn't have power to kill in total. Not until it's let off its chain.
Power to maim and cripple but not kill.
Right. Yes, exactly. It has power to hinder, but it doesn't have power to do what Satan wants to do. We live under the sixth head. Now if I kind of transpose what's happening here on what's happening there, remember, it's a mortal wound that dies and comes back to life. It dies and comes back to life. It dies and comes back to life. Every generation, Satan is attempting to emanate the seventh head, get off of his chain, go, release the false. He's trying in every generation. He wants to do that in every generation. Has it happened yet? I don't know. Could we be seeing the beginnings of it? We might. But you have to understand that this is worldwide. Could we see the fall of America? I think for sure. Regardless of whatever happens. I think that, but could we see the fall of America and have it go on and have China become the next world power, or Russia and live on another? We still have not gotten to a point where we still haven't gotten to a point, number one, where the gospel's gone to the whole world. Right. We haven't had that happen yet. And we don't have yet where we have total world domination by one power. We don't have that happening yet. Okay, and it's got to be one religious power, and he's got to be able to exercise everything over the entire. Now we're getting close. This is why it's scary with technology, because the technology is actually catching up with what it says that we are able to do, but it isn't yet. Okay, we don't. Now, could it happen in a month or 3 months or a year or 2 years? Might, but it might not. Satan has failed more often than he has. Now, this is coming, and it's not going to be pretty. But I think that's where we are right now. We are under the sixth head of the beast, that beast that, like Hitler dies, Germany comes, and then Stalin dies, and then Mao Zedong comes to power, he dies. We're living under that continual sixth head. One of these days, God's going to let Satan off his chain, and it's going to not be good. It's not going to be good for us. And I don't think there really is any way to prepare, because it says that he's going to have authority to conquer the church. He's going to have authority to do this. So what is this number? Well, again, we have to take this into the whole thing. We can't just read the number in isolation. Whatever this number is, it's a calculation of a man's name. Okay? So I don't think at this point it's anything right now that's happening right now. I don't. Because we have to have a world leader to implement his name into your forehead and hand. Okay,
You have to have the one world government in place, and you have to have the leader in charge in order for any of that to.
Yeah, but it could happen all kind of together at once. It might.
It could happen staggered. It could happen
right.
at the same time.
But that's what it has. That's what has to happen. So what is this? What is this name? What is this number? And why is it on the forehead and on the hand? Okay, so given the idea that this is a now situation, and I believe a not yet situation, I believe that there is a real emanation of this happening right now, a real emanation of this happening in John's day, a real emanation happening throughout history. But do I think that this could be a more solidified activity in the future? Well, yeah, because the seventh head comes out and he wants to rule everybody, and he's going to have a way of controlling them. Do I know what that is? I don't. I have no idea what that is. Could it be a computer chip? Absolutely could be a computer. That's the best thing right now. But just remember, I just want you to remember this. There was a time where we all thought it was barcodes. Remember that? Mm-hmm. Does anybody think it's a barcode anymore? I don't think. No, we all think it's because as our technology kind of goes. Before that, they thought it was a tattoo. Does anybody think it's a tattoo anymore? No, I don't. Well, maybe there's some, but I don't think so. Okay, so could it? Satan's going to use, I think, whatever means he has when he's let off his chain at that time. Okay, so if it was 30 years ago, sure, a barcode. If it was before that, maybe. If he's let off now, is it a chip? He's going to use the technology. He's going to use whatever he has available, technology, tanks, all that stuff. He's going to use whatever that is. But I don't know what this is. I don't know. I'm going to give you some interpretive options that people have viewed over the years. I want to start with the most ridiculous. Okay, so the most ridiculous one is that this is Sunday worship.
What?
That's
With that?
well, who do you think came up with that? If it's Sunday worship, that the mark of the beast is Sunday worship.
Oh, that would be Seventh-day Adventist
The,
and
s-
Jehovah's
the
Witnesses.
seventh, well, not the Jehovah's Witnesses.
Seventh-day.
Seventh-day Adventists for sure. Yes.
That's stupid.
And they really cast. Now, remember when I said like how you view the entire book of Revelation and how you view the millennial issue, kind of all bears interpretation on each of the parts, because they are historicists. That's their claim. So they believe that part of it's future, part of it's past, but they believe this really has to do with the Catholic Church. And one of the big deals that they think that happened with the Catholic Church is that they make everybody worship on Sunday. Okay? And what they do is they take the idea that, see, it's not 777, it's one less than 7. What's the seventh day? The Sabbath, right? And so this is just a symbolic representation of those who don't worship on the Sabbath. On Saturday, those who don't have Lord's Day, or not Lord's Day, but seventh day rest. So the number of the beast is anybody who worships on Sunday, okay?
I think we can.
I just wanted to let you know it's out there. I'm going to give you the information. I'm going to give you all the information.
Amazing facts.
That's what that guy, you know that guy, right? Okay, number 2, the second interpretation is that this is Nero. Okay, this is Nero. Now, I buy into this to some degree. I think I would agree with this to some degree. Okay, to some degree. I could see it. I don't have an opinion on this. None of the opinions that I have on this really match what's being said. And none of the opinions anybody else has really match what's being said. They all cheat in some way. Okay, they all cheat in some way. However, this is one of the better ones. Okay, the next 2 are kind of the ones that are better. Now, why would they say it's Nero? Well, that has to do with how you interpret the whole book of Revelation. They're preterists, which means what?
Things past.
Yes, that means that they believe that the book of Revelation is largely dealing with 70 AD. An Orthodox
Except
up until chapter 19. Up until chapter 19, an Orthodox preterist. And that's all I'm really going to be talking about. An Orthodox preterist believes that these are symbols, but that's not enough to say that the book of Revelation is symbols. Symbols of what? You know, okay, symbols. Is it symbols about the future? Is it symbols about the past? Is it symbol about the whole church age? That's not enough to say it's symbols. A preterist believes that these are symbols, but these are symbols that tell the story of the destruction of Jerusalem and the rise of Rome. That's what they believe that it is. And why Nero? Well, it says to calculate the number of his name. Well, they say he was a beast. He was called a beast. He died by a sword. They look for things that fit this. If you take the number of Nero's name, you'll hear people say that it equals 666.
Right.
So it's not 666 to them, it's 666. And if you take Nero's name and you translate that into numerical equivalent, it comes out to 666. Also, there is an early translation of the book of Revelation that's instead of saying 666, it says 616. Well, that change seems to be purposeful. And if you take Nero's name one way, it actually makes 616 rather than 666. So they say, well, see, they're trying to communicate the idea to somebody else. So instead of putting 66 down, they put 616 down.
Seems to be playing gematria.
It all is. All of them are. All of them really are, except for, well, not that one's not. And then the next one's not going to be either. Okay. So, what's the problem with that? Well, the problem with that is that's not Nero's name. You have to have Nero and his title. And then you have to translate it into Hebrew. And then you have to translate that into the numerical system. You know, back then they had numbers for the name for the letters of the alphabet, and you can calculate anybody's name. So that's a problem for them. That is a problem for them. I think that I can get 666 out of anybody's name here if you give me enough time and you give me nicknames and you give me middle names and middle initials and maiden names, and if you let me titles, doctor or Mrs. and sensei, if you give me titles and you give me enough time, fool around enough, you'll get anybody's name out of this. Okay. Now, what's the positive idea of Nero? Why do I say that it might be Nero? Well, it's not because I believe the book of Revelation is talking about AD 70. I don't, okay? But Nero stands as a figure, just as a maniacal figure, just like everything else in the book stands for a maniacal figure. So when it talks about Babylon, Babylon's long gone, right? But Babylon's a symbol for ungodliness. And so Nero might therefore be a symbol for what it's going to look like later.
A symbol of that evil and corruption.
Well, he was an antichrist.
He was an antichrist, that's for sure.
John says there are many antichrists.
Yes, he was an antichrist.
The last one.
Well, there are many antichrists. You've heard that Antichrist is coming. Even so, there are now many antichrists. So he was an antichrist. Everybody who ascends to power and tries to destroy the church is an antichrist and fits this. This is why I say this is part of the now and not yet a deal. Okay, so could it be Nero, like Nero as a figure, as a figurehead? Yes, but you have to play with the numbers a little bit. You have to play with the name a little bit. It's not so clear cut. Okay, the third option is that this is a symbol of man, that this is 666 and not 666. But given the symbolic view of the book of Revelation, what day was man was created? Day 6, right? How do you emphasize things in Hebrew? Well, Hebrew and then spilling over, you say it 3 times. So what he's saying here, what these people say here, is that what this is this everything man has to offer. Everything that's about man that you can possibly do and have to offer.
The idolatrous world,
yes.
Society.
Without the 7th day to hallow it, without God's approval on it. Everything humanity has to offer. Now, why the hand and the forehead? That goes for this one. That goes for all of these, actually, except for the last one that I'm going to talk about. Yes, God's people are commanded to write the law on their hand and on their forehead, and it has to do with what you think and what you do, your actions in this world and your mindset in this world. Now, this is why this group, this is the one I come closer to. I'm going to tell you the problem with this, though. Okay, I'm just going to tell you that I come closer to this one. But this is why this is universal. Remember, it says everybody who's not written in the book of life is under this number. Okay, so, well, if this number hasn't been assigned yet, then how could everybody be under it? How could that unbeliever in, Mao Zedong, who persecuted Christians, be an emanation of this if it's a literal number? See, that's part of the problem with having it to be a literal number, okay? Because everybody who's not in the book of life, who's not been marked by the Lamb on their forehead, is under this number, okay? So how could everybody be under this number if this number hasn't been written yet, hasn't been around yet? That's the idea. That's their strong point.
How can you be a servant of a master that doesn't exist yet?
Yeah, right. Unless that master is Satan, and it's in every generation. And this is symbolic of what man has to offer.
Could it be pointing, real quick, could it be pointing to the fact, for example, the German people, they knew what Hitler was doing. They knew about the death camps. They knew about it all. They went along to get along out of fear. So in a sense, even if they hated Hitler, they capitulated to his to what he said, and then what that filtered down to the SS, and then and like what he did with the Lutheran Church, took over the Lutheran Church.
I would say that is a perfect example of Satan trying to get off his chain.
Yeah.
It's fitting this exactly. The only thing that hasn't happened is it wasn't successful. It suffered the mortal wound.
It suffered the mortal.
And now it's gonna come back. I would say everything about that is 100% true. We need to be on the lookout. They needed to be on the lookout because we don't know when God's gonna go off you go.
Yeah.
We don't know. The problem with this view is that you can't calculate it. It says calculate his name, right? So how can you calculate his name? There's some calculation involved. That's the command here. It says in verse 18, it says, this calls for wisdom. Let the one who has understanding calculate the number of the beast. And it is the number of a man or man. Now it still could loosely fit into this, but it's said to calculate his name. So there's some calculation involved. That kind of throws me back. Well, maybe it is Nero as a symbol.
Right.
Like Babylon's a symbol, but I don't know. Okay, I don't know.
If you need a symbol for cruelty, Nero would be a damn good one.
Yeah. But that's not a chip, though. Not unless they do something with that. Okay, I have to say that's not, because whatever this is can be calculated. And we're commanded to calculate the number of it.
Right.
Okay? So, and that leads me to the fourth one, and that is anything goes. And this is the good, the bad, and the ugly, and everything in between. I have no idea. People, like I said, if you give me enough time, I can get anybody's name out of it. Ronald Reagan was one, because it was Ronald William Reagan. How many letters in each number? 6. And then that one, that early variant that says 616, well, Ronald W. Reagan.
Yeah.
Ronald William. I mean, you can get anybody you want out of here. Now, could this be, again, this is one of those things, it's too dreamlike. It's like, what's now, what's to come? How is it going to emanate in the future? Is it going to emanate in a more real way? Probably, but it's got to mean something to them then, because he's telling them to calculate the number of the name. So it's got to mean something to them as well as mean something to us. And this is why I said here, I don't know. This is what I'm least sure about. However, it has to be a world empire, and it has to be some type of number that you can calculate. I think that's what it says here. I mean, I could be.
That's a literal rendering of it. If it's not just beings, truly just symbolic.
Yeah, I get that, but why would he say to calculate it? I mean,
calculate could also mean, depending on how you're looking at it, could also mean comprehend.
Yeah, well, it means to figure it out, is what it means here, to figure out the name. So
it may not even be mathematical.
It may not. Now, again, remember, I don't know. My best guess is between these two. And 3 days a week I'm over here, and 3 days a week I'm over here, and 1 day a week I can't decide.
Can I mention just some interesting, okay, so we're looking at this, and we do have some major world events right now.
Right.
One of them is the Federal Reserve. This is just factual. This is going on. With the trillions of dollars they're printing up, number one, they're nationalizing the industries.
Right.
They're actually taking stock. They're bringing corporate and private together. That is National Socialism. That's exactly what Adolf Hitler did.
Yeah.
That's just facts.
Yeah.
They're also doing something else very interesting. They're giving trillions to all the other central banks around the world, regardless of it's Germany or France or whoever. So what that's causing things to do is their money is going down in value, the dollar is being pushed up, and now they're floating the idea of going to a one unit of
Right,
currency.
but that's
Digitized.
digitized, right.
Now, you take from the scientific portion of it, and you can actually look this up for yourself. It's just factual on his own website. You have Bill Gates pushing for a vaccination
That has a
What they
chip
want.
in it. That has a
that
chip
has
in it.
something electronic in it that will hook you into a credit, an earned credit system And the patent on that particular technology, this is literally the patent number, 2020 06 06 06.
I see.
That's interesting.
That is interesting, and it's interesting that the barcode had 6666 in it,
Right.
but nobody thinks it's the barcode anymore. Could it be that? I'm going to grant you it very well could be.
Why
Who
would
thinks
you-
it's the code now? But don't misunderstand me.
I think it
Satan's
represented the world system.
always trying to get off his chain. That's the point I'm getting at, and he's going to use the technology. But I want us to all be weary because these kind of arguments have always accompanied. They've always accompanied. That was the 666 with the barcode. But nobody thinks it's the barcode anymore. They're even doing away with the barcode and going to the square. Could it be?
Closer now.
I agree. I totally agree. And I don't, and I am not going to underestimate that at all. And I totally believe it. And those are the facts. I agree with you 100%. But it was also the fact that the barcode had 666 in it. And that
Still
didn't
does to
turn,
this
it
day.
still does to this day. Right.
The long lines were at each end and in the middle.
Right. Yes. Those long lines in each end and in the middle. You know, so there's always a case to be made for why it's happening now. And there's always a belief as to why it could be happening now. Right. And I want to say that it's a good reality as to why it could be happening now. But I also want you to know, too, if it is happening now, you're not surviving. You are more than likely not surviving. This is worldwide assault. This is worldwide satanic. This is Satan's office. He's allowed to do what he wants to do. And the book says that he is going to be given authority and power to destroy the two witnesses. They're going to lay in the street for 2 days, or 3 days, sorry. It says he's in chapter 13 that to conquer them. In chapter 20, it says he's going to surround the city. And in this chapter here, where it says it's to come, it says that he has some power here as well. So, but I want you to see that I don't know. I just kind of wanted you to see what I think's happening today. I really do believe that could be it. I mean, please don't misunderstand me. But I always take it with a grain of salt. Because in every generation...
Well, it may be thwarted.
Yes, but that's the point.
Yeah.
That's the point. I think Satan is trying to do that, though. And that's why you have all this
That would be the biggest
666.
joke if it just simply was the number
Right.
666.
Well, I think that Satan's always trying to, and that's why he's aligning these things up in this way.
Right.
The question is, will God let him right now?
Right.
And we don't know. We don't know if God will let him right now. But let me tell you, if he does, like I said, and I repeat myself like a broken record, all the preparation in the world's not going to help you. Now, that's not saying don't be prepared. Please be prepared. But it
could be a rolling out over time.
yeah, well, I think there's some time element to it to be rolled out. Yeah, I don't think it's going to be like an overnight thing.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
But I mean, it could be. Maybe he did get let off his chain, and it's
Some people think that. Some people he is let off his chain right now, and it is rolling over
progressively moving.
to this very, very quickly. It seemed, but it does say a short time. Now, what does short mean? I don't know. 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. I don't know. You know, I mean, we kind of have to be careful with what a short time means, because it doesn't mean nothing. It means something, you know. But I mean, we go through this with the Antichrist. How many people in here really believe Barack Obama was the Antichrist?
Oh, tons.
An antichrist. I didn't think he was.
Well, okay, all right. I wasn't sure. How many people now think it's Trump? How many people thought it was Bush Senior? Tons of 1,000 points of light into a new world order.
Yeah. Oh, he was a carrier of it. He was an antichrist too.
Yes, but he's not the Antichrist that's talked about. Well, at least in its final stage here, he's not that yet. All right. Any questions? You missed a pretty good portion of it, but you'll have to watch it on YouTube.
They're just a funny.
Uh-huh.
The mainstream is beginning to roll this idea out. I have no idea if it's going to happen. Just watch for it.
Mm-hmm.
Hillary and Obama tickets. They're actually talking about it.
I've
Go
read
in.
more
Yeah.
up on it.
And I think that, and I think it's awful, it'll happen, but again, let me just warn you, there are books right now that you can get that said that if Thomas Jefferson was elected president, it's the end of the world. And they had every reason, it just, if you were back there and you read it, you would have said, this is it. If you were in Luther's day, you would have looked at the Catholic, does not fit the Catholic Church?
Sure.
Yes, so could it be? I do. And do we think we're closer? We are. Is the technology catching up to be able to implement this? Yes. I don't think we're there yet for a couple of reasons. Number one, the gospel has not gone worldwide yet, and we don't yet have an entire one world system yet in order to implement that person at the top. But they are moving it.
They're moving the ball
So that
faster.
but again, it could go down. There are people who don't want this. You got to remember, China itself is its own independent power. They want their own power. They don't want your power or the petrodollar and stuff. As far as I know, I don't know. And I don't know enough about world events. I'm speaking off topic. But as far as I know, China is not on board with this unless they're at the top.
But remember, it says that the kings submit their authority. That would come as God sends great delusion to believe the lie.
Yeah.
So the 10 kings.
But they're still the one at the top, though. They're still the.
Well,
There still has to be someone sitting at the top.
Right.
Yeah.
At that point.
And with how the world is right now, with all the superpowers, we would fight each other who gets that top spot.
Well, let me also. This is why I think there's got to be a religious element to it, and signs and wonders accompany it, because there's got to be this element that people go, there's no way to deny that. There's no way to deny that.
Indisputable proof.
So in other words, I guess what I'm saying here is when we look at what's happening today, we can't look at it in isolation, just like look at this number. We have to look at it in its composite whole, and that is it is the number of a man. I don't know who that man is yet, but there's also the second beast that gives power to the first beast, and we don't have that yet established.
What if it's not in order? Now what I mean by is this. Hypothetically, let's say they accomplish this.
Uh-huh.
And if you don't take this vaccination, and if you don't go cashless, you will not be able to buy, sell, or trade. But we still don't have a centralized world figure yet, but he comes later after the system's in.
Could happen. Could happen that way. It could. I would. But saying it could happen is different than saying I have exegesis to believe that that's what's going to happen that way. So that's. I mean, but it could.
Order? Is there an exact order?
I think in each one of them there's if you ask me if they're in exact order, the answer is no. In each cycle, sorry, that's the word I'm looking for. In each cycle, there seems to be an order. It seems to start with where we are now and then move to the end.
Right.
So that.
But as far as the components of the end.
I don't know, but you'd still have to make a case for it. You can't just make a case that it's not this way. You have to make a case that it is this way.
Well,
Just
like skinning a cat, you can do that in many different ways, but the end result's the same.
right.
Hypothetically, real quick, let's pretend that it does happen that way. What do you think your position would be then? We still don't have at least an antichrist who has come out and shown himself, but we end up with a one world currency. It's digitized.
If that happens, then I'm going to say this is it. I'm not going to, and no one's going to and I'm going to hedge my bets. No one's putting a chip in me regardless.
Right.
Amen to that.
You know, unless it's a Dorito, it's not happening. All right. And with that, we will close. James, would you please pray for us? All right. Jennifer, will you please pray for us?
I didn't hear anything, so.
Father God, with everything that's going on around us, and as we look to your word to try and make sense of it, sometimes it's clear, sometimes it's even more muddled, and Father, there's just so many interpretations. Lord, I just pray that you would just speak to us through all of this, that you would just call out to us through the din of the noise of this world, that you would just talk to us, make it plain and clear. We may not see the whole picture, but just let us know what you want us to do day by day. Lord, we can search for the final answer and possibly never ever get it, but what we need to be really concentrating on is what you would have of us right now. And Lord, I pray that we would focus on that we would focus on you, and that we would just continue to build ourselves up as your church, and just continue to do the last thing it was that you called us to do until you say something differently. And Lord, we just lift this to you. We lift our thanks and our gratitude that you allow us to be back together again as a group.